So I am going to be analysing each of Jonathan Tah, Jonathan David and Angel Gomez, assessing not just whether they would be good value for money signings on free transfers, but also explaining some hidden costs with these types of deals that a lot of people seem to miss, and then ignoring the value for money factor and simply analysing whether they would be good enough and also whether they would suit the role they would need to play in Ruben Amorim's Manchester United system. In this video I'll specifically look at Jonathan Tah, and in future videos I'll come on to David and Gomez. So of the three, Jonathan Tah has been most heavily linked with United recently. He turned 29 in February, with him set to leave Bayer Leverkusen when his contract expires in the summer. I can't seem to find any concrete reports on Tah's salary, signing on fee or agent fee demands, as you can with Jonathan David, but from reports at the back end of 2024, I don't think it's going to be a massive salary for United. I'd estimate somewhere between £5 to £7 million, which is around what Victor Lindelof is currently on. But in terms of what Tah would offer as a centre-back for Amorim, he is stylistically similar in many ways to Harry Maguire, but he also has some big differences in his game. But before I break down exactly what those are, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including this 2006-2007 white Manchester United away shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, which they actually did send me, alongside this Zidane Juventus shirt from the 1990s. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you will get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. So Jonathan Tah, like Harry Maguire, is one of the most physically and aerially dominant centre-backs in Europe. And like Maguire, this is reflected in the fact that both players rank incredibly highly for the percentage of aerial duels they've won over the past 365 days. Maguire is 6'4", Tah is an inch taller at 6'5", and in possession, both centre-backs are very good ball players, particularly when it comes to switch and play with long passes from deep. However, there are some major differences between the two, and so I can see why United may feel that Tah is the right type of upgrade on Maguire in that central centre-back role in the back three. As like Harry Maguire, I think that Tah centrally in the back three is his optimal role. However, unlike the Englishman, Tah is one of the quickest centre-backs around, making him well suited to playing in a high defensive line, something that Maguire does struggle with. And if Amorim does want to use a more aggressive man-to-man press next season, which I assume he would want to do, then pace is certainly an attribute that's going to be needed for all three of the centre-backs in the back line. Maguire stylistically is much more of a front foot defender, someone who reads the game well and is confident when jumping out of the back line to either put pressure on an opposition forward receiving the ball with their back to goal, to then look to put in a firm standing tackle, or being able to get in front and make the interception. However, Tah on the other hand is much more of a covering defender, not someone who's going to record a high amount of tackles or interceptions through pushing out of the back line, but instead using his pace and reading of the game to shift over and sweep up long passes in behind United's defensive line. Now in possession, I think you could probably say that Tah is the better of the two. His FB ref report certainly shows that he is a far higher volume short and medium passer than Maguire. However, with context, I don't think this is as significant as it first looks, due to Tah playing in a highly possession dominant Leverkusen side in the Bundesliga, in stark difference to Maguire's Manchester United. Now what I will say is that Tah's speed does make him a more effective ball carrier than Maguire, able to take advantage of any space granted when the opposition drop off, looking to cut passing lanes and allowing him to have the ball by driving into the space and progressing the ball forward that way. However, my issue with Tah is that whilst I think he would be a slight upgrade on Maguire, particularly pace-wise, which as a consequence will allow Amorim to use a more aggressive press with a higher defensive line, I don't see him overall being significantly better than De Ligt there. Ball playing wise, I think he is probably better at the moment, though I do think De Ligt will develop this part of his game over the next few seasons. And even this season, to be honest, I have seen a significant improvement in both his long and incisive passes from that wide centre-back role, which I think can be translated into the central role. Also, my big issue with Tah is that despite his pace, like Maguire, his sheer size can make him a bit clunky and awkward in certain situations. I don't think he's that great when he's defending in isolated 1v1s at all. I think he backs off far too much, allowing the attacker to progress the ball closer to goal than necessary, and as the defensive section of his FB ref report shows, not only is he an incredibly low volume tackler, even considering the team and the system he plays in, but when he does have to make a move to tackle a dribbler, he is prone to getting beaten in these type of situations, which you can see statistically from his FB ref report. Also, despite being a very good progressive passer and carrier, As I spoke about in my Leonardo Balerdi analysis video, I'll leave it linked in the description and in the eye above, I think because Amorim seems insistent on pushing the central centre-back up to the edge of the box during the build-up phase, United need a highly press-resistant central centre-back, who isn't just great technically but also has the fluidity in his movement to be able to turn quickly out of pressure, either by allowing the ball to roll across their body before turning and driving forward into the space, or dropping a shoulder to then spin away from the pressing player and drive out of play that way instead. And for me, when I watch Tah in possession under pressure, I can't help but thinking that he has similar issues to Maguire, in the sense that his size and broadness makes it hard for him to turn quickly and wriggle out of that type of pressure without getting caught on the ball. I certainly think pace-wise he would solve issues for Amorim in the press, whilst also having Harry Maguire's aerial and ball playing ability. However, unless we are selling De Ligt for between £35 to £40 million this summer, I just don't see Tah being the right centre-back for United to sign. And to be fair, there aren't too many of those types of centre-backs to sign, which is why I have been saying that United should maybe consider moving for Balerdi this summer, whilst he is still available and attainable for around £30 to £35 million most likely, before he goes somewhere else or his fee gets massively inflated. The issue is, if we aren't signing Balerdi, I think Ruben Amorim will probably have to look to convert a ball-winning midfielder into a libero to play in the centre of the back three. Tchouaméni would be perfect for this role, as we have seen him transition from central midfield to centre-back at Real Madrid, but I just can't see Real Madrid allowing him to go now that Alonso is there, and even if they did, he'd cost an absolute fortune. You could maybe look to sell Maguire, but realistically, he's just turned 32, he's got 1 year on his contract, and wherever he was to go, United would probably have to subsidise a significant proportion of his salary, and so for the fee we'd probably get in the end, I just don't think it's worth it, especially because if we are signing Tah, it's going to have to be to a 3 or even a 4 year contract. Now the obvious solution for Amorim is just to adjust his build-up shape, because whether it's Tah, De Ligt, Maguire or Euro as his central centre-back on the edge of the box, I still think United are going to find it hard to consistently play out of high man-to-man pressure throughout the course of the season, either leading to frequent losses of possession in dangerous central areas around the box, or being forced long, which certainly could be an option with a striker like a Gyökeres or an Osimhen, but it's still a low probability strategy at the best of times. Certainly if United aren't able to bring in one of those two, and have to settle for a less physically and aerially dominant centre forward. But primarily United need to be able to play through the centre of the pressure, to then exploit the space in the middle third. And so my thinking is surely the player that you want on the edge of the box in the build-up phase is not a centre-back, because in general centre-backs are probably the least press-resistant players on the pitch. And so unless you're going to get a specialist ball-playing centre-back with the press resistance of someone like Balerdi, whoever you use there, I think the same issues are going to occur. In my opinion, Amorim should consider having the central centre-back De Ligt or Maguire moving over to the right, creating a back three inside of the box with Onana and the left-sided centre-back, where from the right-sided centre-back Mazraoui can then pull wide towards the touchline, allowing Ahmad the right wing-back to push higher up the pitch, taking up the same sort of position that he would if he was playing on the right side of the front three. You can then drop Bruno Fernandes deeper to the edge of the box, and now you've got Bruno alongside the midfield double pivot in this area. And even if it wasn't an elite level press resistant midfielder like a Stiller or a Walton, I still think Mainu, Bruno Mount, or even Casemiro or Agate, to be honest, are going to be better at receiving the ball under pressure with their back to goal than any one of Tah, De Ligt, Maguire or Euro. Also, it seems pretty evident to me that all four of those centre-backs are going to be far better when they can receive the ball facing forward rather than with their back to goal, and instead being the players to play those forward passes to the edge of the box or incisive passes in behind the opposition's midfield line. Now people will say that Amorim shouldn't change his system, but this isn't changing the system. We are simply talking about one phase of play, which is the build-up phase, where the possession shape and strategy, which on their own aren't the system, is exactly the same as before. You've just got different players in certain areas. I just can't see there being any benefit to having the central centre-back specifically pushing up to the edge of the box, particularly if they don't have the press resistance or technical ability of your players higher up in the midfield line. And I also think the skill sets of both Mazraoui and Ahmad suit taking up positions in these areas than they do in the back three inside of the box or in a deeper position on the flank. And so overall, whilst I do think Jonathan Tah would be an upgrade in possession on De Ligt, whilst also having the aerial ability to replace and the pace to upgrade upon Maguire, I still don't think that he solves the main issue in that central centre-back role. And I also think De Ligt is better defensively in most areas other than when it comes to aerial ability. And so unless we are signing Jonathan Tah for a fairly low fee and also salary, to then sell De Ligt and bank the transfer fee and salary difference to then strengthen in other positions, it just seems to me like we are adding another similar centre back to an area that is already fairly strong and doesn't actually solve the tactical issues in Amorim's system, which I think can be fixed by some restructuring of the build-up shape, or instead signing a central centre-back like Leonardo Balerdi. So let me know what you think of Jonathan Tah in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below. And also, if you want to check out any of my articles or sign up to the Instagram group chat, I'll leave my Patreon linked on the end screen now as well.